And
Give me.
go ahead. And we'll hit the share screen. And I think that should do it. Am I doing it right here?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're sharing your screen. I see.
Wait a minute. Oh, wait.
What are we sharing screens because we're looking at blood results?
We don't really need to do that. So
nope, you don't want to share a screen. You want to go back to where we were before?
Yes, definitely. All right, let me stop the share.
You are recording all this right now, so you have to edit it out.
Yeah, I'll edit that all out. Okay. All right, well, let's just go ahead and go. Everybody knows I'm new at this, so hey, that's the way.
You know what? Pretend like you're not.
It's
just fake it. Fake it till you make it, girl.
Yeah. I'm authentic. I'm okay with no makeup and messing up and all that.
You are. Well, you look great. You have makeup on. You look awesome.
This wonderful book, if you can see it, I don't really know that you can, is the book that saved my life. And because Ms. Elle is so wonderful, I wanted her to be one of our very first guests. The Paleo Thyroid Solution is her love letter to people who have thyroid issues. And if you've ever had a non-diagnosed thyroid condition, you'll know what I mean by that. So I'm just going to let her kind of take off and tell you her story on where she was, how she got there, how she advocated for herself, and why she wrote this book. So go ahead, Elle. It's going to be wonderful. Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just take over for the next hour. No,
go ahead. It's all good.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that. It is my love letter to people. I just couldn't bear the thought that other people would suffer for as long as I did, much less sometimes 20, 30 years. As you know, you've spoken to people. So I think it's really important that people understand, for starters, that I'm a subject expert on accident. I'm not a doctor. I didn't go down this road because I was like, ooh, thyroid health. I became an expert because I was left in the dust by dozens of doctors in Los Angeles, a town of the most amazing doctors. So what's happening if you're in the middle of Nebraska? I don't think it's probably good. Okay. So that's why I had to write that book. I was like, I need to get the word out. This is terrible. Right. If I'm in Los Angeles and this is happening to me, right? So, so I'm a writer and an actor, and I came to this town to pursue acting, and I worked out and did what I thought, South Beach zone, eat every 2-3 hours, 5 small meals a day, a lot of cardio. I did what I could to get this body that I needed to have to be a leading lady in this town. Now, it's gotten better at the time, but 15 years ago, it's like, you needed to be a size 4 or 2, or it just wasn't happening, or you're the fat, funny friend, and that's just the way that it worked. So, and I was happy doing that too at one point. So actually, I have, side note, I have hypothyroidism to thank for my writing career, because when I got super fat on hypothyroidism, I couldn't go out for leading lady roles anymore. And before I had solved it, I thought, you know what, I'll go back into sketch comedy, because if I can't be the leading lady, maybe I will be the fat, funny friend. And then it turns out that led me into a career of writing. So, sometimes negative things that happen to you are blessings, and they are amazing. You just can't see them right up front. And this is such a story, it really is. The whole
just your story with Primal Blueprint. And for those of you that don't know, she is also, Elle is also the podcast interviewer for Primal Blueprint, which is huge. And, okay, you're an actor. That's crazy wonderful. But you have this whole side hustle that's a hustle unto itself. So it's really incredible. So you need to check out the Primal Blueprint podcast for sure. But go ahead and finish with your story.
Thank you. No, in any way that I could use my voice, that goes to another. Before I get into that, just want to backtrack. For those that you don't know, this is not something I talk about a lot because I was so busy talking about thyroid stuff, but will be the subject moving forward of a lot of my talks, which was, I was actually physically disabled at the age of 22. I'm 45 now. I look normal, but I have a hand injury that disables me from doing a lot of things that most normal people can do. So I, at that point, had to find a way to use my voice, which is why I really got into the acting stuff to begin with. And then I'm in the acting stuff and I get hit with another physical thing. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then that they all led right around. My hand injury prompted me into the dream I was too afraid or embarrassed to pursue because it was stupid and no one should be an actor because that's dumb. right? Because I had the golden handcuffs at a
Mhm.
job when I was 23. I was making six figures. I would have never left that job, but the universe cut those handcuffs off of me, injured my arms. I didn't have a choice. So now I have to go forward making a life of my voice. Do you have any idea how hard that is? It's like, where's the roadmap for that? There is none. You invent it yourself. So then I get into sketch comedy and I get into acting, and then I come out here and I'm doing that and I'm making lots of great headways. Like I'm really going out for a lot of great roles. And then I start to get fat and fat and fatter and fatter, and I start bleeding all the time, and then my hair's falling out, and then there we go. And so then this prompted me into, again, writing. So long story short is that I suffered and was misdiagnosed and undiagnosed for a couple of years, finally figured it out. And by the time I figured it out, I said, that's it. I have been left in the dust. I've had enough. I'm not going to let these doctors help me. They don't know what they're doing. Some of them were hurting me. And I said, that's it. I'm going to take my health into my own hands. And I did it myself. Now, I'm not suggesting that people do that, but there are millions of patients that have to do that. So I ordered my own thyroid hormones. I used doctors for their blood results, didn't care what they had to say. And I did it myself. And I succeeded twice in 10 years, once with regular hypothyroidism, which was solved by natural desiccated thyroid. I was on Armour.
Right.
And then that backfired on me at a certain point down the road, and I got a reverse T3 problem. And then I had to go on T3 only. It was an even scarier place because even more doctors don't know what's going on with that. And I fixed both problems on my own. And I just want to give a shout out to two other thyroid authors, which are the only other two authors I trust. And, the best-selling thyroid books have been written by patients for a reason, because we really know what it's like. So Janie Bothorpe wrote a book called Stop the Thyroid Madness. And she has a website of the same name. And it's literally the best website on thyroid health that I would never even try to replicate it. It's just a winner. And there's so much good stuff there. The other book that's really essential is Recovering with T3 by Paul Robinson. And Paul Robinson is a patient out of the UK who has a lot of expertise personally, like I do, in T3 only. And his book is invaluable if you have to go that route. I used his book essentially like a Bible when I was going through it myself. So my life was saved by those two other patients who are also authors.
Right.
And so it brings me great joy to follow in their footsteps and to be able to do something similar in a different arena that covers different things that aren't by those people. But either way, those are the only two books I recommend to people that are on thyroid
I highly
health.
recommend yours because it helped me so much, and you helped. You were kind enough to say, let's get on a call, and looked at my labs and helped me. My day job is a massage therapist. Can't even tell you how many books I have sold of yours and how many I have just given away to people. And I've probably got a half a dozen thank you notes for thank you for saving my life to me. And I'm like, it wasn't me. I just handed you a book and you read it. So it's working, just so you know.
Yeah, no, and that's why I'm doing it, because if I can save anybody the time and the BS that I had to go through, 6 years of my life were ruined by hypothyroidism. I know people who's 20, and it's just not right. This is really fixable, guys. And some are a little bit more complicated than others, but they are all fixable and there are answers. And so people lose hope when they go down this path of uninformed doctors. And, at one point I even thought, if I have to fly to a different country, I don't care what I have to do. I'm not going to live like this. And so anyway, starting there, that's how I kind of got into it. Yeah, that's how I got into it. And here we are. So
yeah. Well, you know what? Let's just get into the nitty gritty if you're okay with that. I've got some pretty general questions from our group, and then some that are a little more specific. I will let you know that in Elle's book, she lays everything out for you. I was able to talk intelligently about the difference between T3 and T4, and when somebody tells me they're on this one or that one, I can say, I can speak intelligently just because I read the book. So I do want to tell you that. In case my door comes open, I have a little puppy outside and she's going crazy because I'm talking and not petting her. But anyway, okay, Beth said she was talking to her doctor, and her doctor says that stress does not cause thyroid elevation. What do you think?
Well, it depends on what the doctor meant by thyroid elevation. What are we talking about? A TSH being elevated? Is that what?
I'm going to guess. That was pretty much.
Stress does affect thyroid.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. So here's why. Well, first of all, so I have a heart rate, I have a wristwatch. It continuously tracks my heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if anyone saw the movie Flight with Denzel Washington, but even if you haven't seen it, there's like a harrowing, like almost plane crashing scene in that movie. Okay. It's one of those, like, especially if you don't like flying like me, it's as I was watching this movie, my heart rate went up to 120. Okay.
Wow.
I was sitting there. So stress, horror movie, someone just cut me off on the freeway, whatever, my pulse is going to jump.
Mm-hmm.
You have an elevated pulse for a while. Now adrenaline's pumping, cortisol pumping. What is that doing? Well, it's antagonistic to the workout you did at the gym. It's going to catabolize your muscles. It's also going to interfere with a lot of different pathways, but it's also going to make you fat around the middle. And so any continuous amount of stress can affect thyroid in a couple of ways. It can affect it from that back end way, and like blood sugar, lack of sleep, just run down. But the message that's going to be sent to the thyroid is this chick is really stressed out, and they see it as danger. It's like, it's danger, right? And when danger is present, all systems go, right? That's the fight or flight. And so you don't want to be in that state for a while, because it's going to cause chronic inflammation and problems that are going to be antagonistic to all of the metabolic processes in your body, including your thyroid health. One of the ways stress absolutely affects thyroid is, and not every time, again, there's different ways it can happen, but one of the ways it can happen is, let's say you're stressed out. It doesn't matter if you're like running from danger for real because you're like in the middle of a nuclear war, or if you are just having horrific, stressful phone conversations with a divorce lawyer, or, or getting no sleep. It doesn't really matter what the stress is. You could just be an angry, bitter, whatever.
Sure.
Okay. And any of those things is going to send the message of fear or stress. And what's going to happen is you can get a reverse T3 problem, meaning the thyroid is going to downregulate, and it's going to start turning some of the T4 you're producing into reverse T3 to kind of try to save you, because there's so much cortisol and so much adrenaline and inflammation, and you're not out of danger yet. So your body's like, ooh, let's dial stuff back down because they're in danger. And danger usually means no food, no rest. Like, we've got to keep them running, and we don't want to keep them burning fat if they're not going to have food. And that's why starvation or being on a wrong diet or over dieting and over exercising causes that same thing. And then you won't get pregnant, or you'll have a miscarriage, etc., because the body is trying to save you at any given time, all the time. And you have to remember that it's not failing you, it's trying to save you. So what messages are you sending to it? And if you're sending it a big middle finger in the case of like chronic stress, it will affect thyroid. Whether it can elevate or not elevate certain thyroid numbers, that's not really
that's not the point.
It's not the point, right? It's that your whole thyroid feedback loop can get screwed up, absolutely, with chronic stress. And we see it more and more now. And that's why reverse T3 problems are on the rise. Normal people who aren't on medication get reverse T3 problems all the time. And it's literally usually due to stress, low adrenals, low iron. I mean, there's a few things, but it's lifestyle often. So yes, that's why sleep is important. And that's why it's important that when you're especially on a healing journey, if you are driving and someone cuts you off and you have that, you feel the heart racing, at that point, cortisol is going to pump out for the next 10 minutes. How much longer are you going to make it pump out? Are you going to call 5 people to bitch about the person that just cut you off? Are you going to swear 5? You have, and this is where awareness comes in, where you have to go, you realize this is a false threat that just happened. No one died. You just got cut off. And you need to simmer it down mentally and try to control that heart rate, because again, that's what's healthier. So in this society of multitasking and running around and blah, 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 that can even be stressful. Like, I'm a person who can operate at a very fast pace. I'm from downtown Chicago. We all talk fast. I can do things fast. But sometimes I realize again that when I'm multitasking and it feels like you're like, I'm on it, right? Like, you're zipping through the day and you're at the computer, and then I look at my heart rate and I'll be like, You know what I'm saying? And not that, I always look at it, but it's just sometimes you can see that even if it feels good or it's feeling positive, it's too much. And it's just interesting to start to be aware of those things in your life, these false moments.
Right.
Try to go, hold on a minute. Do I need to work at 100 miles an hour right now? Or can I just chill it out, because I'm probably being antagonistic to my entire body, my weight loss efforts, my thyroid, and everything else because of this message that I'm sending it.
Right. I completely agree. I'm from Chicago too.
Oh, nice.
Okay, let's see. Miriam says, I have had hypothyroidism for 30 years. My doctor keeps increasing my thyroid medication these days. And there's another question that's just close to that, which where'd she go? I lost her. Anyway, she had asked if there's a possibility that she can ever get off thyroid medication. So it's basically the same thing.
The same person was asking the same question?
Yeah. It was Emirette was asking that she has the typical symptoms even with medication, but the doctors, oh no, wait, that was it. It was right underneath there. Miriam said, I have had hypothyroidism for 30 years. My doctor keeps increasing my thyroid medication. Any advice? And Emirette says she's hypothyroid and she has all the typical symptoms, but the doctor says she's in the normal range. So one doctor keeps increasing and another one doesn't want to increase at all.
Let me tell you the underlying problem I see with both of those questions. Tell me, doctor. You tell me, all-knowing, wonderful, all-powerful Oz. You tell me. Okay, so right off the bat, both of these ladies on both of those questions, you got to learn, girls. Right. We have to learn. We've got to learn about this because you actually should know the answers to these questions. And don't beat yourself up for not. But again, this is about educating yourself as a thyroid patient. So the first question, he keeps increasing my medication after 30 years. I'd be willing to bet him $5 million you're on synthroid or levothyroxine because that's probably the case.
Probably. She doesn't say, but I know where you're going.
I would be willing to bet that if she's watching now, I bet I'm right on that one. And even if, because that wouldn't be the case otherwise usually. Here's the thing. Why do they keep increasing your meds? Who's the first woman? The 30 years?
Miriam.
Okay, Miriam, you need to get the proper test. You need to go back and look at your blood test that your doctor took. If he keeps just giving you medication, I guarantee you he's only testing TSH or TSH and T4. You need to get TSH, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, those four. Do not go without them. Get them tested in the morning between 7 and 9:30. Don't take your medication beforehand. If you're only on levothyroxine or synthroid, they're both the same thing. One's brand name, one's generic. If you're only on T4, it's okay if you take the medication the morning of the test. But again, it just do it without. But it doesn't matter as much. If you're on anything else, you never take your medication before a test ever. You'll get a false result. So you need to get those tested. But you can't just get those tested and then have that same doctor evaluate it. Because the same doctor that keeps wanting to up your medication because like, well, I don't know, you're not feeling better, so here, we'll just give you more. Oh my God, you might have a reverse T3 problem. He could be continually making you hypo every day, every time you go in there by increasing your medication because the T4 is not converting into the T3. It's converting into reverse T3. Right. So you have to get those minimum 4 tests. Definitely get the 2 Hashimoto's antibodies. If anyone watching, you can go to elleruss.com. I've got a free thyroid guide there that tells you every test to get, what time today to take it. So, you don't need to buy my book to go look at the list of tests. But those are the 4 main ones you must get, Miriam. And then when you get them, this is what you look for. Is your free T3 in the middle or above the mid-range? Okay, whatever the range is it in the middle or above? If it's below the mid-range or low, problem. We do a ratio between the reverse T3 and the free T3. If you're not a math person, you can Google it online. Stop the Thyroid Madness has an automatic calculator. The ratio should be 20 and higher, which is healthy. If it's 18, that's okay. It's not too alarming. That means, take Life Extension brand selenium for, a couple of months and do some other things and see if that matters. But I guarantee you, Miriam, that your doctor's never been taking the right tests and they just give you more synthroid because of the symptoms you're saying. And then you keep going back and saying it's not working. I was like, go read the success story of Cara Hahn in my book. That's her story. And she had miscarriages as a result of it. So done are the days, Miriam, of just being like, I keep going in and I keep complaining and then they keep doing this. Time to get a new frickin' doctor immediately. Get the test done, whether you have to do them yourself or not. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm willing to bet $1 million. The doctor's going to go, we don't test reverse T3. I don't do that. Yeah. Well, guess what?
Need it. Can I tell you how many times I was told I don't need it?
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Most people who are told they don't need it, turns out they have a reverse T3 problem. So I love it when that happens because it's constantly proving the point that ego is too prolific within medicine and it needs to stop.
Right.
Recently, I was helping someone in Hawaii and they asked the doctor to test reverse T3. And the doctor said, we don't do that. And he pushed her and she said, well, we only test that if you're like in the ICU.
Seriously.
Okay, so let's look at that logically. So you don't even need to know anything about thyroid health if you're watching right now to know that it's like, we only test X if you're like near death. Okay, so if you're in the ICU near death, why would they test reverse T3 then? You know why? Because reverse T3, when it's really out of whack, is a sign of heart failure.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they test it in the ICU. So why the hell wouldn't you test it before you get to the ICU? Morning sickness in pregnant women is a reverse T3 problem, okay? It is the most nonspecific, best general marker of wellness and unwellness in any given human being, according to the doctor on my book. He tests it in everyone, even people who aren't complaining about thyroid hormones. There's nothing to do. It's just a general wellness test, okay? So you have to fight for these tests. You always get free T3 and reverse T3 tested in the same blood draw, at the same lab, preferably. And if your doctor won't do it, you've got to go to privatemdlabs.com, and these are all in my free thyroid guide or another testing service to get them tested. You must always rule out. I had a consult this morning with a client who told the doctor, she wrote down all the tests I just told you, handed to them. They said, great. She goes for the blood draw. She doesn't look at the thing. They didn't test free T3 and they didn't test reverse T3. They only tested total T3, T4, and TSH. That's it. So now she just wasted a blood draw, wasted money. Now she's 2 weeks behind in getting better. This is unacceptable. You guys need to go into the doctor with a piece of paper and you literally need to say, hey, listen, whether it's happened to you before or not, say, hey, listen, I want these exact tests taken, not variations of them. If you would like to take total T3 or T3 uptake, be my guest. You take whatever you want, but I need you to guarantee that when I go into the blood draw, that these are the tests. And then when you see the lab slip, check it. Yeah. Did they check this? And if not, you call them back. So this is like really a lot of the patient making sure this happens.
And it sounds, people are going to be like, oh, I had it happen to me. Not my last blood draw, the blood draw before that, because I use your list every single time, and my doctor knows what's going to happen. And I took it, and I went to Quest or wherever it was, and it came back, and it didn't have it on. It didn't have T3, and I forget which other one it didn't have. And I was like, okay, I know I ordered that, but sure enough, it didn't show up on the lab test or the results. And I was like. And that's exactly how I felt. I'm like, I have just wasted, 13 vials of blood because I didn't double check, because I've done it enough times that I thought, okay, they know what they're doing. It's not true. You've got to check it every single time. And it's not being paranoid. It just happens constantly. So
right.
Definitely.
And for back to Miriam, I would say you're probably on the wrong dosage and type of thyroid hormone. You've probably been tested wrong. Mm-hmm. And if I were to look at all of your tests that you get, I'd probably be able to tell you what to do. It would either be a decision of going on a T4, T3 combo, like Nature Thyroid, compounded, desiccate, whatever, it doesn't matter, Armor. Or if you had a reverse T3 problem, it might be a T3 only scenario of a suggestion. Mm-hmm. Either way, you're going to continue to be sick until you get the right tests and until you start to get rid of this doctor. Or educate yourself and then use them for what you can with diagnostics, and then you have it figured out yourself while you're trying to find a new doctor. Okay, so the next one.
Actually, we've got quite a few that really, it's just, I hate to say it, but it's just bad
similar.
doctors.
I'd be giving the same answer.
It's just, it's really going to be that Amaret. That's pretty much the same answer as Miriam. Karen wants her T3s. They won't give it to her. She's been to the endocrinologist, and they just dismissed the full T panel.
Of course they do. By the way, just so everyone knows, you can read about why that's the case. The Q&A in the back of my book, I go into heavy detail with Dr. Forsman on why don't they understand? Why won't they take the test? Why don't they see that it's valid? This doesn't make sense to me. Explain to me from a doctor why. You will hear all of that in the back of my book with Dr. Forsman. And just for everyone to know, endocrinologists are the worst people to go to see for your thyroid, period. End of story. The worst. They are the worst. I will speak it from the rooftops. I don't care. I'll say it to an endocrinologist's face. Mm-hmm. They're usually, classically, the worst. And what you have to understand is that they're supposed to be experts in this, okay?
Right.
but they're not. And they want to see everything in this way, and they're rigid, and have egos, and they don't believe in this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had endocrinologists go, we don't test. Oh, I tell a story in my book. I took somebody to an endocrinologist, and I suspected they had a reverse T3 problem. And I said, please take the reverse T3.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, we don't test that. That's old school. Like she just dismissed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at her and I said, well, that's interesting. I actually just had a very severe reverse T3 problem that I got over. So it's pretty new school to me. Right. All I'm asking is that you take this test. Why won't you just order a blood test? It's just one test. And then she said to me, well, fine, but I mean, I don't know how to evaluate it. And I said to her, I go, did you just patronize me for asking you about a test? You don't even know what it is? I'm sorry, people. You guys, I hope everyone's really hearing that. Do you see how horrible that is? Mm-hmm. That's horrible. She didn't even look the patient in the eye. The patient barely spoke in English, was bawling her eyes out. I'm sitting there begging this woman to give this woman any amount of T3. At 5 micrograms, just give her something. She was on synthroid. And turns out, when she tested the reverse T, she had a horrific reverse T3 problem. And that patient just kind of let it go to the wayside because, again, they were like, I don't know, I trust doctors, I don't want to bother. And they just kind of took a little bit of, they got better. I saw them a few months later and it seems, but they were still on high blood pressure medication and all sorts of stuff they didn't need to be on if they had just gotten their thyroid fixed. Right. But again, people, look, I've offered free help to people who've cut my hair who are obese and on synthroid and hating it. And I've offered free help and they won't call me. So, you cannot convince people to make themselves better. All I'm telling you is that if you have the perseverance, it's not that hard. You can actually get better. You just need to find the right information. So, being discounted like that, and in that situation, that really killed me because she dismissed me because she was too embarrassed to admit she didn't know what she was talking about. Mm-hmm. Who is that helping, you guys? And I talk about this a lot with the doctor in the back of my book. And this is just a classic endocrinologist thing. Endocrinologists are also very afraid of suppressed TSH. I just got a text from a friend in Hawaii, same one, that endocrinologist. And he was like, she's worried that my TSH is down to 0.46 or whatever. And I'm like, of course she is. Of course she is, because she's an idiot. No, literally, because she doesn't know what she is talking about. Right. Why do I know more than an endocrinologist on this subject? That's not appropriate. It's not cool, but it's true, guys. So, this is, I love it when someone goes to see a doctor for the first time. They don't do anything. They just meet the doctor. And then I remember like growing up, even my mom would go see a new doctor or something for just, insurance and be like, wow, I met the doctor today. They're great. She's incredible. Really? How do you know? Because she had a great personality and has a degree from Harvard. How do you know that she's any good? You don't, because she's done no doctoring yet. Mm-hmm. So we just tend to look at these people like, thank you, you're going to save me. And nobody should look at that anymore. In fact, you should go into every doctor's appointment being like, I hope you better prove to me why you should be my doctor. Yeah. That's how it should be.
It should be more of an interview. Well, I even went to, I think I went to 3 functional doctors before, I actually, the doctor that did me the most good was, he was just a general practitioner and he's the one that spotted it. And I'd been through 3 functional doctors. He spotted it and I hung out there with him for a while. And then I got a line on another functional doctor and he's been great. And then I have like a second opinion doctor.
Functional doctors are best. You just don't know. It's hit or miss. You
don't know what you're getting, You don't,
and that's why you have to learn.
Mm-hmm. And when you're finally sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll pick up the book and do it yourself.
Yeah.
That's
usually at that point, though, there's lots of health ailments going on or diseases you didn't have to get that need to get patched up. Mm-hmm. I had to get polyp surgery in my uterus because of all this junk 13 years ago. There's people, again, you're going to get something else that goes wrong with you, hormonal imbalance, and then you're going to try to be patched up by these uninformed doctors. And all you needed to do is fix this in the first place. So stop wasting your time, educate yourself so that you can at least work with your doctor and, hopefully you'll show patient compliance and they'll practice medicine with you instead of operate like they're about to get sued, which is how a lot of doctors practice medicine. So anyway, I don't know if we have any different questions or.
Why don't you tell everybody while we're on that what the biggest selling medication in the world is?
So the number 1 selling prescription in the entire United States is thyroid hormone, and it's synthroid. 21.5 million prescriptions are filled a month a month. That's just one type of thyroid hormone. That's just a brand name.
Right.
Imagine how many prescriptions are filled. I bet you it's up to 100 million a month. I'm going to have to go do some more research on that, and I'll get back to you when I figure that out. It's the number one selling prescription literally in the entire United States.
Yes.
That sells everything. But often that brand name, synthroid, that mode of treatment, T4 only, fails patients. So if you've been on synthroid, here's the bottom line. I don't care if you're on thyroid hormones or not. If you're not feeling awesome, better check that thyroid. And if you're not feeling perfectly great on synthroid or something else, and your doctor's like, well, your thyroid's fine, must be something else. And you're like, I guess I'm just getting old and dumb. No, you didn't look at your test. Stop, get involved, get on it.
Right.
So that's really important. By the way, do we need to talk about your thyroid stuff? Do you have labs you want to talk about for your own? How are you? Are you optimized now and feeling good?
I'm feeling pretty good, honestly. And my last lab, we're talking about bringing me down a little bit. So I'm working on that right now. I cut it down a little bit. Seem to be doing okay.
Are you just on desiccated?
Yeah.
And do you mind sharing how much you take a day?
I was at 2 grains. Now I'm going down to 1. Well, I started at 1, went up to 1.5, went up to 2, going back down to 1.5. And, I'm kind of hoping to get back to 1 and just work my way down. But are you saying you might want to work your way down to eventually try to wean off and see if your thyroid recalibrates? I would love to, but we got to see how that goes. I'm not, I'm hopeful.
Someone asked that question, and I want to address it.
Somebody wants to,
So yes, the answer is yes. So first of all,
you can get off thyroid.
You can get off of thyroid hormone, and it doesn't matter. The timing doesn't matter. Your thyroid can recalibrate. It might take up to 3 months, but it's possible. And to show an example that my thyroid was fully suppressed, meaning nothing of this feedback loop was working. I was taking the thyroid hormone, was completely shutting it down for, 15 years, something like that. And my thyroid's half working now, meaning I took a very low dose. So I used to have to take 3 grains a day of Thyroid when I was on it, or Armor or whatever. And then when I went on to T3 only, I was on 100 micrograms at one point, then down to 50. And I'm now on 7.5 micrograms a day, which is kind of a joke. It's like 2.5 times 3. It's extremely low. I'm going to go get tested. We'll see. But it's funny. I did an experiment not too long ago where I was like, well, this is such a low dose, so let me try to get off this. Didn't go very well. I didn't do any diagnostics. I just did how am I feeling? It didn't go well. I am going to get some diagnostics soon. But what that proves is that as you get healthier, as you get T3 in your body, as you're able to clean up all these things that might have caused in the beginning, right? All right, now I have the time and the wherewithal and the mental energy to go get tested for heavy metals and see if that's part of it, or go over here. And at least you're unhypo and you're normal while you're doing all of this stuff. And then you clean all this junk up. And then that's the point. You're like, I feel great. That's the time to start to see if you want to get off of it. And you got to know that you got to give it a little bit of a shot there, because, it might have an awkward couple of weeks, and you may have no awkwardness and you transition right into your thyroid kicking back in. The goal is, people get weirded out about taking, I don't want to take medication for the rest of my life, but it's not medication. It's a hormone that your body needs. It's not like taking birth control that has 5 pages of symptoms because it's manipulating your body in a way it wasn't meant to be. Right. That's not how thyroid hormones are. So don't be scared of being on them for life, because there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. In fact, I know people who have stayed away from it, who need it so badly, and they continually fall apart because they're too stuck in the fact that they're like, I'm not going to take a medication. Right. It's not a medication at this point. You're depleted of something you need that your body's not giving you. Mm-hmm. So you can live your whole life on thyroid hormone replacement, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing to win if you get off of it. There's no prize there except for, okay, now I don't have to spend money at a pharmacy or take a pill every day. Right. But I would just say this, and I don't know the full story, and you don't have to tell it, Debbie, but, if your doctor wants to reduce you, that's a sign of something that I don't like, because it's like, well, why are they reducing you? Is it based on symptoms and based on labs? The TSH is okay if it's 0.01 or lower. Right. Your free T3 should be at least mid-range if you're on NDT, unless you're extremely T3 efficient. I've seen very few people, but those people are dialed out with fitness and health and feel perfect in every way. And then somehow they're able to get away with like a lower T3 number because they're more efficient at it, because over time. So I always question when a doctor's like, "Ooh, we might want to reduce you." It's like, why? Did you just look at a lab? And why is that? Because if you look at like Kara in my book, her doctor wanted to reduce her when she was at like 4.1. The top of the range is 4. She didn't have any hyperstimulation symptoms. So that doctor was just like, oh, well, now the only other factor there that at that time of the reduction, it was like spring or summer, which might be the time, and this could be for you, where you reduce a little bit. It could be by a quarter grain, okay? It doesn't have to be a big amount, and then more in winter. So, those can be 2 fluctuations a year that might happen with someone, but it wouldn't be big dips. But just because someone's at the top of the range, who cares? So how are their symptoms? How are their vitals? How's the resting pulse? What are the temps like? That'll tell you if they're overstimulated. You don't declare hyperthyroidism or, oh my God, you're on too much just because you look at a lab number. Sometimes you can. I mean, if it's outrageous, but usually the person will have symptoms along with it. So anyway, just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and with everything, this is a Whole30 group. It's all about experimentation. You take things out, you put things back, it's N=1. You just keep working on things until you dial them in. And then about the time you get them dialed in, you might have to change them again. So that's where
this is a Whole30 group. I'll tell you, I met Melissa Hartwig and she's lovely.
She is. She's a hot ticket, that one.
She is. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been wonderful. She asked us, myself, Terry, Teresa, and Joyce to start an over 50 Facebook group. And holy cow, there's a lot of us. So we've been having a good time with it. And we're the group that gets hit with the thyroid stuff a lot. So I was like, okay, I know who we need to talk to.
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't you, let's see, I think we've got, Meg did have a really good question. Is there a difference in the therapeutic serum range difference when taking nature thyroid versus synthroid? How about that one?
Sorry, run that by me one more time.
Is there a difference in the therapeutic serum range difference when taking nature thyroid versus synthroid?
Well, yes, and only if the difference would be between taking synthroid only by itself. Okay. You would see different labs than someone taking natural desiccated. And the same lab conclusions do not apply. I have some of these in my book, but I'll throw out a few right now. Okay. Number 1, if you have a patient or you're on a T4, T3 combination, which is any natural desiccated thyroid, that's IRFA in Canada, Armour, Nature-Throid, WP, whatever, all of it's the same. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of the same, okay? Or you're on a compounded T4, T3. Why would someone do that? There's people that have a religious issues with pork. So they're not going to take natural desiccated thyroid, and they're going to go get compounded T4 and T3 in the same exact ratios as desiccated. Okay. And then the next one is me, who takes T3 only. Mm-hmm. Okay. So for those categories, so anyone who's taking any kind of T3 is likely going to see, as they get optimized and start to feel better, the TSH will go down. If you're on T4 only, you never want to see the TSH fully suppressed. That means you are hyperthyroid. And a way to indicate a problem with natural desiccated thyroid is if you're free T4 on a test, and again, making sure you did not take any medication before the test. You never do that with anything containing T3, unless you're doing a random experiment like I did, where I took the T3 and then got my blood tested 4 hours later because I was curious. But other than that, you never want to do it because you'll get a false result. So in that situation, so usually the free T4 range is somewhere like 0.8 to 1.7. Okay, let's just say like that's kind of a standard range. In that scenario, you don't ever want to see the free T4 above 1.4. Okay. That could be an indication of too much, either hyper and or a reverse T3 problem. So yes, labs will look different from someone who's on synthroid to someone who's, now here's the thing, the reason most of my book is dedicated to things that have to do with people taking T3 is because I do not believe that synthroid is an optimal choice. It can work for some people, but it fails so many people so often, and it technically is not endocrine mimicry. our bodies do not completely rely on T4 conversion alone. Our thyroids actually do pump out some direct T3, which is why natural desiccated thyroid is often an incredible answer for most people, and it's the one that does the job. That's not to say you can't take NDT, add a little T3, take NDT, add a little T4. There's lots of tinkering that people can do, but most people can just get optimized on natural desiccated thyroid and they're good. And so that is a T4, T3 combination. So yes, labs will look different on that. And I always suggest people, if you're on synthroid, unless you're feeling incredibly awesome and young and you've got no effing issues at all whatsoever in life, stay on it. If you have energy issues or anything that's subpar compared to your normal friends who have no issues, then you need to go get the right tests, and you probably need to get yourself off of synthroid and onto natural desiccated thyroid, which is a very smooth, easy transition to do.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. All right. So I'm just going to throw this softball out to you. What lifestyle plan do you think works best for long-term health, long-term thyroid health?
There's no question about that answer for me. It's paleo, primal, ancestral, evolutionary health. It's look, if anyone's curious about this, I always suggest this. It's, especially if you're hypo, it's hard to read stuff because your brain's not working right. It's hard to retain information. So if you're hypo, or even if you're not, and you want to understand the science behind paleo, primal, evolutionary living and what this means, aside from reading books and going on to the internet, is a documentary called The Perfect Human Diet by C.J. Hunt. Okay. It's my favorite documentary. It's about 6 years old. It's still the best I've seen, and it really explains everything that you kind of need to know to get your foot in the door as to what is the science behind it. Everything else is kind of a gimmick. Right. Everything else is kind of like what we just talked about. So I mentioned birth control. So birth control, right, is manipulating our body as a human in a way it's not supposed to work, right? But people do it for obvious reasons, but not supposed to. And that's why you get a list of horrific symptoms that can come with it. And not to say that anyone has those symptoms, but I'm just saying that's why you have those horrible symptoms. The same thing goes with lifestyle. When you go against the lifestyle and diet that is dictated to you by your DNA as a human, you are in the same boat as you would be with, right? So, for example, there was a woman at my gym who I knew she was a vegan, and I'm a swimmer, and she swims too. And she came into the sauna. I was in the sauna, and she came in her bathing suit, gasping for air. She was like, I can't catch a breath. I don't know. I don't understand. I just did like 2 laps. I swim every day. And I'm sitting there looking at her, and I just look at her and I go, honey, you're a vegan, right? Go get yourself a bottle of methyl B12 folate right now. And right when I said B12, her face dropped. She said, oh my God, you're so right. That's probably it. I haven't taken B12 in a really long time. I dropped the ball. I think I ran out. Long story short, she goes, I see her like a week later. I'm like, how are you feeling? She's like, oh my God, thank you so. Okay. So why couldn't she breathe? Because she decided to eat in a certain way that goes against what our DNA as human beings expect of us. And so you're going to run into a problem if you're not careful. Now, I'm not saying don't be a vegan or a vegetarian. I'm just saying, look at your reasons for being one, for starters, because a lot of people have some misguided reasons, and I'll mention one of them. Someone I met said, I don't eat meat anymore because I don't want to contribute to global warming. All right. We got to unpack that for a second, because the meat and the cows and the consumption that contributes to global warming and the excess methane in the air that ruins the ozone is from all of the cow feedlots that no paleo primal person would ever purchase meat from. And let me tell you about those places. So these are where you drive on the side of the freeway, and it's a disgusting muddy field, and there's tons of cows, and it reeks, and they're all mooing, and it's just like, ugh, gross, right? You pass one of these huge things. And what are they doing there? Well, there's no grass for a reason, because they're not pastured, meaning they are not allowed to live the life that is prescribed to them by their DNA as a cow. Okay. So instead, what do the ranchers do? They feed them grains, which is not a part of their native diet. What happens when you feed a cow or a human being something that's not a part of their DNA prescribed diet? They get sick. What happens when they get sick? You have to give them antibiotics. Ever wonder why it says on the package, no antibiotics? Why would they even have to get? They don't have to. When you have pastured farmers, their animals have immune systems. They don't get sick. And pasture-raised animals are great for the environment. Those are not the cows that are releasing excess methane. By the way, when you eat a ton of grains and beans and things that are right from you, you release excess methane too as a human being. I'm telling you, forget about it, right? Or anything that's not right for a human being, right? You'll be tooting all day long too. So that's why. So then I explained this to that person. I said, so why not just eat meat from those places that we're talking about, the pastured farm, so that you're contributing to the healthy environment? But instead it was like, I believe this thing I saw in a vegan movie and now I'm out of the meat game. Yet this person is still like, and I always ask this to every vegetarian or vegan, I'm like, is there anything that ever tempts you or that you ever smell and you go, it smells good? And I've heard this from a couple people like, sometimes when I smell barbecue, well, guess what? Your body's telling you to eat barbecue.
Yes.
That's what it's telling you to eat.
Yes.
I have run into so many pregnant women over the years. One was a vegetarian for many years. And as she started to get pregnant, she started to have dreams of herself putting her hands in like raw ground beef. And she kept having these dreams. And finally she was like, I guess my body's telling me to do something.
Right.
Which it was. Her body was like, oh my God, please eat meat. So she did. She hasn't gone back to being a vegetarian ever since then. But there are reasons for this. Or don't you think it's funny when you hear people that are like, well, I'm vegetarian, but when I'm pregnant, I eat meat. Well, what do I? Well, if it's so great for the development of your baby and you do it only in this scenario, why aren't you doing it for yourself? And again, some people don't like it. They don't like the texture. I get not wanting to kill animals, but I said this on another show and I really need to explain this to the vegan vegetarian world, which is, well, vegetarian is different because a lot of people eat eggs and fish as well. But for strict vegans and stuff like that, there's a great book, a great guy I interviewed. So you can always research Tovar Cerulli, Cerulli. And Tovar is great. He wrote a book called The Mindful Carnivore, a vegetarian.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. Vegetarians hunt for sustenance. And what's great about him is what he realized is that they, for ethical reasons and Eastern religious reasons, he and his wife were like, no, we're going to go vegan. They had their own vegan farm, organic vegetable farm. And what they started to realize as organic vegetable farmers, they could not get out of the killing cycle.
Right.
Some herbicide was going to have to use for some beetles, gophers, fences, everything. If you're not doing it, the organic farmer is killing something to get you your lettuce. And if you think by eating soy you are protecting animals from dying, you're wrong. So many huge animals get shot. There's a specific type of deer that loves soy farms. There are so many animals shot in protection of GMO soy, which is just no one does.
Mind-boggling.
Right. So again, I just say around this issue, why are you choosing this? For what reasons? And are you ignoring some, I've also never seen a vegan and vegetarian make it beyond 15 years, but particularly vegans, strict vegans.
Right.
At some point they break down and get sick.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's been disgusted by meat since she was 10. So her mother, they're a very wealthy family and they made sure she was the proper vegan, like really healthy one, the best that they could do. So she wasn't, eating a bunch of junk. And she gets sick at some point, and the doctor said, if you ever want to have a baby or you ever even want to exist with energy, this was the worst news for her after being a vegan since she was 10 to at 38 be told she had to eat meat. She was practically throwing up just thinking about it.
Right.
And what she has to do now, and she does it, and it did make her feel better, is she holds her nose and she eats chicken breast as medicine and then, gets the taste out. It's like a medicinal thing for her.
Right.
But she was like,
protein is medicine.
Yeah, it helped her.
That's what it boils down to. Yeah.
So you got to look into these reasons because some of these like ethical or worldly or contributory, and here's the thing, like we are a part of a whole life cycle ecosystem and you cannot get out. I almost have to say that I think it's a little elitist to think that somehow you're not a part of this. You're still a part of it, even if you're just eating lettuce, because that organic farmer is killing something. So the whole, I don't want to kill anything, you're still killing something by proxy.
Right. Oh, sure.
And that might feel better. And maybe that's okay. And you're okay with that. I get it. What this guy did, and what's great about the end of his story, is he finally got sick. He looked at the idea that they were part of this killing thing, no matter how hard they tried to not be. And then he said, you know what? I don't want to just be someone that eats meats and kills by proxy. I want to actually go check it out. And he learned about hunting and became a hunter and went and hunted his own elk and ate his own meat. And now he hunts his own meat almost.
And became part of the ecosystem. Yeah.
That's right.
That's crazy. You've had Diana Rogers on your show, right?
Yep.
She's amazing. Poor thing. I feel so bad for her. She put a post out today about, I think it was and I could be wrong on this, the New York City schools are doing Meatless Monday and the whole vegan thing. And bless her heart, I'm reading between the lines and I can see that her head's just exploding because, she's so passionate about sustainable farming and, she hangs out with Joel Salatin all the time and whatnot. But yeah, she's incredible.
You know what? I challenge anyone, go to any diabetes organization website, Pacific Diabetes Organization, doesn't matter where you go. And guess what they're promoting? A diabetes making diet. They're promoting you guys, it's absolutely insane. Our government food pyramid suggests 6 to 11 servings of grains a day plus 2 to 4 servings of fruit. Hello, type 2 diabetes. Hello, every commercial you see on television has anyone ever seen in their life this many glucose monitoring ads?
Oh my God.
What the hell it's so awful, and it all can be corrected by a paleo primal lifestyle. So that's the paradigm, by the way, for people that don't know. It's, high fat, moderate protein, low carb. I love the idea of starting with the Whole30 paradigm too.
And that's where, Whole30 is a great first step because it gives you that whole experimentation. And then we call it food freedom, but really what most people move into is the paleo diet for their food freedom. And, it works out really well. Primal, and some people go keto and, that's good. I know Mark's been doing a lot with the keto. But you just have to play around and see what feels best for you. But 9 times out of 10, somebody who's going down that path is going Whole30 and then they're doing paleo and then they start messing around.
Well, and Whole30 is paleo. I just want to.
Oh yeah, it's just strict paleo is what it is.
It's just super strict, and we're partners with Whole30. So absolutely, I just say you start with a clean Whole30 paleo paradigm. One of the elements of that is not including butter, and eggs, I believe, are off the Whole30 initially.
No, eggs are fine. Butter, we use ghee instead of butter.
Okay. I even take it a step further, especially if Hashimoto's, I say cancel the eggs. And here's why. I personally don't have any issues with eggs. I've been tested for allergies, but when I eliminate them and bring them back, it's not a fun story. And people with Hashimoto's have noticed that even if they aren't technically allergic either, that can be the difference between the I don't feel wells with them. So that might be just one extra step on the Whole30 of that for people that are sensitive to stuff or really, and there's also the autoimmune protocol. There's certain seasonings that really affect people with Hashimoto's negatively, like foods high in histamines, including cinnamon, stuff like that, like cayenne or paprika. So, these are just like AIP food list, Whole30, AIP paleo list. These are all things to look into. And with that, I want to mention that the exercise and lifestyle is a huge component. This is what people don't understand. If you're still working out at the whole chronic cardio carbohydrate dependency rate you were at before, we're on that treadmill every morning trying to run it out, you're going to stay a sugar burner. So in the primal paleo world, you do 180 minus your age. Whatever number that is, you don't go over that in heart rate when you exercise, except for maybe once or twice a week. If you're an athlete, different story. Okay. But for most people, and so you don't want to go in and haul ass on the elliptical. You don't want to hike as fast as you can because that's going to jack cortisol. It's going to deplete glucose. You want to burn fat, not glucose. So a lot of people will see a food list, they'll eat from it, but they don't understand that there's still a deviation of high fat, moderate protein, low carb paradigm. Because you can eat all the fruit you want on a paleo food list and still get diabetes, right? If you overdo it. And then on the other night too, they're missing the exercise component. They might be still over exercising, which keeps them in a glycolytic, needing the sugar. You're hungry and sore after you work out. So there's a lot to look into here. There's so many free podcasts on this. If you're confused about primal or paleo living, you can go to the Primal Blueprint podcast. And while we have 300 plus episodes now, just listen to the first 10 to 15 with Mark Sisson and Brad Kearns, just going through what this is. And just start there. Don't anyone go from where they are to jumping into keto unless you have
Unless you really
cancer.
know what you're doing.
Right. Or you have a medical reason to do so, like
Right.
epilepsy, brain injury, cancer. There's so many reasons to
Right.
immediately go into it, but unless it's for an incredible, like serious therapeutic use, tread lightly, because if you can't lose weight and you've tried everything, guess what? Keto ain't going to probably do it for you. It's probably a thyroid issue. Right. And so, and if anyone cannot lose weight, and your group probably knows this, but if anyone can't lose weight, aside from the thyroid stuff that I mentioned, get an HbA1c test. If that test is over 5.2, by the way, don't care what internet or anyone tells you. If it's above 5.2, that's time to look at carbs. If it's 5.7, like it was for me, that's prediabetes. If you're at 6.0, you're pretty much at type 2. So sometimes people need that test to kick them in the butt. That's their rock bottom for getting the food under control. Okay. And type 2 diabetes is absolutely reversible. So everyone needs to know that. We all accidentally get ourselves there. No one intentionally tries to do that to themselves, but it is a self-made, self-inflicted condition. And it is also self-taketh awayeth. You know what I mean?
Bravo. Yeah, I like hearing it from somebody else besides me, Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I don't want to keep you all day because I could talk to you forever.
That's right. What else can we cover that's going to be interesting?
Let's see. I think we've got a lot of it. Tell us what you're working on, what we should be looking for from you, what you're getting ready to do in the next year. Anything good?
Yeah, I'm going to develop first of all, I'm working on another book that I'm not ready to totally announce it yet. It's not going to be a health book. It'll be more of a self-improvement, mind body book, not about, actual thyroid health, but I am working on a paleo thyroid solution, web course, because the thing is that, I can coach, so many more people at the same time. And, as you go through this, while each scenario is different, all of the variables and tangentials are often the same. So I'm often repeating myself. It doesn't matter what Sandy's labs are or Joe's or how old they are. There's a lot to compartmentalize so that everybody can get private, detailed coaching from me and really learn how to do it. Like, yes, you'll get a copy of the book too, like PDF or something, but then I will really go through, get into more detail than my book on dosing and possible complications. And because I haven't written a second edition to my book yet, I'll probably add some things or some things I didn't put in my book because, I couldn't write a 900-page book, right? So you have to stop somewhere. So I'm working on that, working on another book. And, I have a lot of stuff going on as a writer. I have a animated TV series for kids that was just pitched to Imagine Entertainment yesterday. And I have a award-winning documentary out. You can go to headhuntrevisited.org to check that out, which is really kind of an accidental primal documentary there. And writing and speaking. And I love interviewing people on the Primal Blueprint podcast and helping people. Anyone can reach out to me on social media or email me through my website, or just download that free thyroid guide. I spent so much money trying to fix this. That's why I made the free thyroid guide, because yes, who doesn't want to sell books? But you know what? You don't have to buy the book to get on the right path. But get on the right path. Just own it and step up, because it wasn't until I honestly, sometimes makes me want to cry, because I think I'd be dead by now. I'm not kidding. I think about this sometimes and I go, I don't know that I would be alive right now, or I would be riddled with, who knows what, they would have given me a hysterectomy because I'd be riddled with fibroids and polyps and no one ever figured it out. And I was misdiagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. I mean, I want to cry for all of you out there. If you're suffering, I really understand it. And even though I'm happy and I'm not hypo now and my brain's great and life is great, man, it sucked. And I really understand. And I've really been there and I've had all the symptoms, and I'm here to tell you that I'm not unique. I am someone who really suffered and fell apart completely and could barely leave the house. I'm not someone who just caught this in 2 minutes and my doctor put me on thyroid hormone and I was great. You know what I mean? I really suffered for you. So it's so please get the information and get fixed. And also, of course, you call me anytime you want me to get labs and everything like that, because it's important that we make sure everybody's optimized. Yeah.
And thank you for being so accessible, because I know when I read your book, I was so moved and I just had to write to you, and you were great to just say, here, let's talk about it. So for anybody out there that's really just totally down, download the book, either buy the book or download the website, read through it, go get the labs, and then you can email Elle and she'll talk to you and help you out. I mean, she did more for me than any doctor did. So that's why it was really important for this interview to happen.
Well, and thank you this is how it gets better, is because that's my goal. And that's what I say in the book, just pay it forward, right? Like you said, you've probably met 100, you're going to meet, it's a disproportionately a women's disease. So every woman, and this is, by the way, there's guys listening there, this happens to guys too.
Oh, it does.
But this is disproportionately a women's disease. You're going to meet so many, and it's almost like once you've started to figure out your own thing, that's when 100,000 people with thyroid problems show up in your life. And it's for a reason. You're there to get them on the right path. So send them to the podcast, or a podcast or something, send them to anything. I've known people whose lives have been saved because someone heard a podcast, gave it to a friend, that gave it to a mother, that then called me, and now they're doing great. So pay it forward, spread the information. Thankfully we live in a world where this is out there, because when I was going through this, none of this information was available. So it's available now. And you know what? You just got to keep going.
Yeah.
I know people, they're like, well, I'm the extra complicated case that's screwed, and it's harder for me, and I thought I'd be better by now. That's also a fixable case. Right. They're all fixable.
Break it down.
A little bit more time than others. Some need a little bit extra nuance. Some need a heavy metal detox that might take 5 months. Some, whatever, it's all fixable. So please don't lose hope. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you very, very much. And I truly appreciate it. And we may have to do a little follow-up at some point, but
anytime.
There'll probably be a lot of questions after this. So I might just send you an email with some of those, and maybe you can just get on and answer some of those if we have some more. But I appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure. And I was going to say, if you want to at some point, I did this once with Misty Williams of Healing Rosie, which is if you want to have some people in your group submit labs and a little bit of a breakdown, we can do a whole live again where we just evaluate like 4 people's blood work or something that everyone else can learn too. And that's when you can share your screen and have it up there and we can be talking about it. And that can often be very helpful for everyone in looking at a variety of labs and seeing how to think about it. So always happy to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Elle. I really appreciate it. All right. Take care. Let me see if I can